Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. So, we will now discuss with this binding price ceiling and binding price floor, how the market equilibrium price and quantities are determined. Okay. So, let us take an example or diagram. Say suppose first price ceiling, binding type of price ceiling. So, as usual we are measuring quantity demanded, quantity supplied in the horizontal axis, price in the vertical axis. This is the demand curve, market demand curve, this is the market supply curve, right. And suppose this is the binding price ceiling PC. Okay. So, as we know that without government intervention, free market equilibrium price could be OP star equilibrium price, right, and OQ star could be the equilibrium quantity in that market without government intervention. Now, suppose government is setting this OPC. So, OP star is the free market equilibrium price, OPC is the price ceiling imposed by the government, right. So, what will happen? So, when OPC kind of binding price ceiling is imposed by the government in that market, what will happen? Why that will be the equilibrium price? Because look at here, actually free market mechanism, free market force, demand supply force is trying to set the price OP star level. Okay. But government, due to government policy, nobody is allowed to charge, legally allowed to charge the price above OPC level, right. So, this due to that policy, right, all the customers also know that charging price above OPC level is legally prohibited in that society. So, no customer will be willing to pay more than that. In fact, suppose one seller is setting price little bit above than OPC level, right. So, customers can report that to the government, right, and it will be an illegal or punishable offense, right. So, all the producers are forced to set the price or the sellers, producers, sellers, okay, forced to set the price OPC level. Okay. Look, in our past lecture we told that when government is setting that price ceiling, right, some binding price ceiling, target is to give some sort of relief to the customer. But what will happen? So, after the imposition of this price ceiling, right, because this price is lower than the equilibrium price. So, at the equilibrium price, this much of the product can be supplied in the market, because that is the supply curve or that is the quantity supplied. OQ star is the quantity supplied at the price OP star level, right. Due to this lower price ceiling, lower than OP star level, right, some customers, some sellers are not get enough incentive to deliver that product in the market, right. So, as a result, at that price only this much, say suppose QC, I am telling QC. So, only OQC amount of supply of the product or quantity supplied of that product will be there in the market, right. So, at OPC level price, although this much of quantity demanded is there for the product, only this much of quantity supplied is there in the market. So, definitely equilibrium price will be OPC and equilibrium quantity will be OQC. So, these will be the equilibrium price quantity combination in that market. Okay. So, that is the one side of the story, one sort of implication due to binding price ceiling kind of mechanism or price ceiling kind of government intervention. Okay, equilibrium price quantity combinations is changing from the otherwise free market equilibrium price quantity combination. Okay. Okay. Target, as we told, as we mentioned, that target was that what? to give some sort of relief to the customer, but effectively what is happening? Yes, after this kind of price ceiling, the customers who could get the product, right, because this much of supply only of that product is there, so only that much of customer will get that product, right. This many customer will be there in the market who are trying to purchase that commodity, but will not be able to get the commodity from the market. So, that much of shortage will be generated within the market, and shortage means what? Shortage means customers are willing to get the product, but they are not getting the product. Although the price ceiling mechanism is to give some sort of relief to benefit the customers as a group, right. So, this kind of policies of government intervention also target group is the customers. A section of the customers will not get benefited at all, in the sense that they will not get the product at all. At least if this kind of restriction was not there in the market, this many additional customers can get the product, right. So, even those customers are also not getting that product which they are willing to purchase. Okay. So, that's the thing that due to this kind of price ceiling mechanism, okay, and when this kind of price ceiling mechanism is there, no, you see that some other kind of activities can appear in the market. What kind of activities? Some sort of rationing by the sellers will arise in the market. How? Because sellers know that they can't charge any price above this level, OPC level, okay, they have to charge that price. And they also realize that that price, how much we can deliver in the market, okay, how much we can supply in the market, whole lot of customers are there more than that, right. Look at here, this green okay, this many customers are there, or potential customers are there who are trying to get that commodity from the market, but only this much of supply is there in the market, right. So, that this phenomenon everybody knows, sellers know. Then seller has to, seller may come up with some sort of rationing mechanism. What are those rationing mechanism? Seller may try to discriminate. Okay, say I am a seller, no, I will give only to my known people, okay, and who other customers are coming, I will tell them no more product is there, no more stock is there in my store, okay, I am giving to my friend, my family members, my known people and all, okay. It should be this kind of discrimination can come. What else can happen? Say some sort of long queue can happen, right. So, say voluntary production cut, oil production cut by OPEC, we have discussed in our past lecture, right, sometimes back, okay. So, suppose initially before that OPEC's decision to cut the voluntarily the price, say suppose this was the demand supply situation, this was the demand curve, this was the supply curve, okay, and suppose so this was the price ceiling by the government, say in a country, okay, price ceiling. So, since this is the price ceiling and which is above the equilibrium price level, so OP star, okay, there is so equilibrium price was in that market is OP star only, okay, and at that price the number of amount of quantity demanded and amount of quantity supplied was exactly matching, okay. So, although there is a price ceiling mechanism by the government in that market, it was non binding and it was not having any implication over the equilibrium price. Now, suppose after when OPEC voluntarily cut their production of the oil, right. So, say suppose supply curve becomes this, because we know that due to that things each of the OPEC members are voluntarily cutting their production, right. So, total amount of oil production worldwide will be less. So, as a result supply will be small or less. So, supply curve may say shift from S to S1. Okay. So, what will happen? Now, the whatever the price ceiling mechanism was there in place, right, although it was non binding earlier, after this supply shortage it becomes binding, because after the supply curve shift this is the equilibrium price, right. this is the equilibrium price. So, this price ceiling is now becoming a binding price ceiling. So, as a result, binding price ceiling means what? Because this much of price ceiling is there, so nobody is allowed to sell that product above that price level. Say suppose this is the PC, no, that is the PC level, OPC, nobody is allowed to sell that product in the market above the price OPC level, right. So, at that OPC level, this much of demand is there because this is the demand curve, but only this much of supply of the product is there because that is the coming from the supply curve, right. So, this much of shortage will be there, exactly the thing what we are discussing here in this diagram, right. So, what happened, no, that time when it is in this kind of phenomena arises in the US market, when OPEC introduced that voluntarily supply constraint kind of restrictions, right. Global supply of the oil product or gasoline, okay, it reduced significant amount, okay, and immediately what happened in the US market, no, it is a long queue before the oil stations, okay, petrol pumps and all gasoline stations, okay. So, long queue is another mechanism. So, this when we are telling that suppliers, sellers can come with some kind of rationing mechanism, right. One side of this story is that the customers can have to wait in a long queue to get the product, sellers can do preferential treatment through which we are telling that discrimination, okay, discrimination, certain people we are giving, certain people we are intentionally telling that no, there is no stock, like that, right. So, all kinds of this kinds of, not only that, some illegal transaction may happen. One customer is waiting, no, that customer knows that this is the legal price level is OPC, okay, but he is silently or whisperingly tell the seller that see, I will give you little bit more, you give the price. So, that little bit more behind the bar or behind the curtain we are trying to give means what? We are encouraging, or the system is encouraging people to involve into illegal transactions, right, because that is any price above that level is legally punishable. So, we are telling that that is illegal transaction. So, this kind of binding price ceiling kind of restrictions, right, may create lot of inconvenience within the society, okay, when the people are waiting or customers are waiting in the queue, a lot of timing wasted, no, time is precious, everybody has some productive time, they can utilize that time in some production activity, so that economy can be able to produce more goods and services, right. That precious time is wastage, they are wasting that time just standing in the long queue, right. It is creating inconvenience to a section of the people, but not only the inconvenience, it's a loss to the society ultimately, right, because producible resources is getting wastage, okay. So, that is the thing. So, what we have discussed, through price ceiling mechanism, although government's target is to get some sort of relief or give some sort of relief, provide some sort of relief to the customers group, okay. First, a section of the customers will not be able to purchase the product at all at the new price, because there will be shortage, okay, at the equilibrium price level, okay. That is the one side of the story. Another side of the story is that even if the people who are getting the product at that ceiling price level, right, they may have to face a lot of inconvenience like waiting in a queue and so on, right. So, exactly the same thing, if there is a binding price floor. So, that how that is, say suppose price floor, as we told that is the legally lower bound or legally minimum level of price at which people should transact that commodity into in the market, right. So, anybody is allowed to transact that commodity in that price above, because that is floor. So, above that price level. So, as usual, let us discuss that using a diagram: quantity demanded, quantity supplied in the horizontal axis, price in the vertical axis, and suppose this is the demand curve and suppose this is the supply curve. okay, and suppose this is the price floor, say this blue line is the price floor, okay, price floor, OPF, price floor. So, as we already clarified, price floor is basically is to give some sort of relief to the seller's side, little bit more price, so that producers can get, right. In India, no, MSP of the agricultural products, minimum support prices, MSP. I am sure all of you know about this term MSP, minimum support price for certain agricultural products. It is there, no, in India. So that MSP is basically some sort of price floor. Okay, so agricultural product we are telling, so farmers who are producing those commodities, right, because during the harvesting time, no, lot of products, all the farmers, no, who produce that product, they are harvesting, right. So lot of supply of the product will be there in the market. Okay, so since supply is huge, it may have a tendency that price will come down, okay, and as a result income of the farmers can go down. Okay, so to save the farmers from that, or to give the some sort of relief to the farmers, okay, government impose certain sort of MSP, minimum support price. So minimum support price means what? Nobody is allowed to transact that commodity below that price. Okay, so like that kind of price is this OPF, right. So price floor, OPF kind of binding price floor is basically, so what will be the implication if that kind of, so what I am telling, MSP what is available in Indian market for the agricultural products, that is nothing but one sort of price floor mechanism, more specifically binding price floor mechanism. Okay, so if that is the case, without that price floor, what could be the equilibrium price? Equilibrium price could be OP star amount, right, OP star amount, okay, and that much of commodity can be transacted, OQ star amount of the commodity can be transacted each unit at the price OP star. Okay. Now, if this is the price floor, binding price floor is set by the government, so what will happen? At that price, look at here, although since it is more than the equilibrium price, no, lot of sellers, lot of producers will be incentivized to deliver that product in the market. So they are supplying in the market. As a result, this much of quantity supplied at that price is available in the market, right. But since price is huge, right, so customers are only willing to purchase that much product, because only that much of customers are there in the market who can tolerate this OPF kind of price level. Okay. So obviously this will be the equilibrium price. So without price floor or without government intervention in this kind of market, OP star free market equilibrium, as we wrote out earlier, free market equilibrium price, and OQ star could be that free market equilibrium quantity. Okay. But after this kind of OPF price floor, this will be the equilibrium price after the government intervention, and definitely OQF will be the equilibrium quantity. Why that is the equilibrium quantity? Although OQF1 or F prime, OQF prime, this is the quantity supplied by the sellers, okay, by the producers, by the potential sellers, but OQF only the quantity demanded by the customers, because as we told, since price is little bit above that the equilibrium price, okay, so as price is more and more, okay, what will happen? Less and less number of customers can tolerate that price, right. So, less amount of customers are there, that amount is OQF. So, although huge amount of supply is there, not enough number of buyers are there to buy that product in the market. So, as a result, this much of surplus of the product will be there, surplus. Okay. So, surplus means what? Surplus means commodity is there or potential sellers, producers, they brought their product in the market, but nobody is there, no customer they get. As we told that price floor mechanism, or more specifically that binding kind of price floor mechanism is to give some sort of relief to the supply side, supplier side, seller side, right. But look at here, after that binding price floor mechanism implemented in that society, in that market, what is happening? This much of quantity, no, only will be sold in the market, that is the equilibrium quantity. The sellers who are able to sell their product, they are getting high price, that OPF amount of price, but whole lot of seller will not be able to sell their product at all in the market. So, yes, the target group is the seller class, but a section of the seller class will get benefited. They will get higher price, or that PF amount of OPF amount of price, MSP kind of price what government said. But whole lot of sellers will be there who will not be able to sell their product in the market at all, because there is no customers for their product at that price. So, again what will happen? Perhaps the kind of rationing mechanism, kind of illegal kind of things, transactions and all those things will be there, may be there in the market. What kind of illegal activity here can happen? Okay. So, seller actually nobody is allowed to transact that market, neither nobody is allowed to transact that product in the market at a price which is lower than OPF level, right. But sellers also, although they know that is the thing, but they will perhaps approach to the customers that please I am giving little bit discount to you, please purchase that, right, because otherwise their product is not sold at all. Whole lot of customers, this many customers are there, right. Look at here, this many customers are there who are willing to sell their product in the market, but they are not getting their customers. This many sellers are there who are willing to sell their product in the market, but they are not finding any customers for their product in the market, right. So, they can compromise a bit, right. Okay, I am cutting down my product little bit, price little bit, please purchase this, although that is legally prohibited from the government, right. So, this price floor, price ceiling mechanism, what we discuss here, first what are those mechanisms? Let me summarize. Price ceiling means we are setting some legally upper limit of the price within that society. Price floor, government is setting, or we are setting, or the society is setting that some legally lower limit of the price, okay, of that commodity in that market. Okay. Now, this price floor, price ceiling effectively can be of two types, each of them can be of two types, binding and non-binding. Okay. Binding means what? When this kind of price floor or price ceiling has some implication over the equilibrium price quantity. Okay. Implication, by implication what we are telling, effective implication means basically without that price floor or price ceiling, whatever equilibrium price quantity can be there in the market, with that imposition of the price floor or price ceiling, equilibrium price quantity combination will differ. Okay. In that way it is called effective implication, right. So, binding price floor or binding price ceiling will have some effective implication on market outcome, okay, that we have discussed. And at the end we told that although when government is setting price floor, target is to get little bit or give little bit benefit to the seller side. When government is setting alternatively price ceiling, target is to give little bit benefit to the buyer side. Yes, a section of the sellers or a section of the buyers, on a totality a section of the target community will get benefit, no doubt about that, but another section of that target community will not get at all benefit, because in the price ceiling case lot of customers will be there, potential customers will be there who will not be able to purchase the commodity at all from the market, because not enough supply of the commodity will be there in the market. In the price floor situation, okay, there will be whole lot of producers of the product who are willing to sell their product, but will not be able to find the customers for their product, okay. So, they will lose the market. So, these are the things through quantity restriction, through quantitative restriction on price, okay, how government can, or any policy making or any decision making authority within a society, how they can intervene into the market. Now, the other way we will discuss how through taxation mechanism, the other way government can intervene into the market. As we discuss that what is the tax, let us go to a new page, okay. So, tax is basically government. So, there are a lot of different types of tax. Say suppose per unit transaction of the commodity, say certain amount of money is taxed, okay. Similarly, say certain percentage of say price is say 10 rupee, 10% on that price will be the tax, okay. That is sometimes called ad valorem tax, okay. Tax on the value of the product. Market value is basically price of any product's market value is the price. So, price is 10 rupee, so 10% on that will be the tax, okay. So, there are a lot of different types of taxes are there in economics. Some are referred as quantity tax, means per unit transaction of the product, some tax amount is there. Ad valorem tax, okay, on the price of the product some tax is there. When that tax is imposed, no, it may be percentage of something, right. So, in this course, in our discussion, in this syllabus of this course, we will discuss only quantity tax, okay. So, suppose government is going to impose some sort of tax, okay, tax per unit of that commodity which is under the taxation, okay. So, if government impose the tax on a commodity, right, how that can influence the market outcome, right. So, without taxation, suppose as usual we are measuring quantity demanded, quantity supplied in the horizontal axis, price in the vertical axis, and suppose this is the demand curve, okay, this is the supply curve, okay. And suppose government is going to impose some tax on that product for which this is the market and for which this is the demand curve, this is the supply curve we have drawn here, right. And that tax is suppose say some amount, say rupees T per unit of that product, that much of the tax government is going to impose, okay. How it will influence the market equilibrium, to understand that we have to first understand say tax on whom, because in this market two group of people are there, sellers and customers. So, first question is tax is on whom, okay. Tax may be on the customers, tax may be on the sellers, right. So, if we understand if we have the answer to this question, right, then the question is how much tax is there, okay. How much tax, how much is the tax, like this rupees T per unit, like that. When we get these two answers, right, then it is very easy to understand what kind of implication will be there in the market. Look, so suppose first question, this is the demand supply curve, and if government without any tax intervention or without any intervention by the government in this market through this taxation mechanism, right, what will be equilibrium price and what will be equilibrium quantity, we all know. This will be say, this will be equilibrium price and this will be equilibrium quantity, right. Now, suppose government is going to impose this tax on the sellers, tax on suppliers. So, if suppliers are taxed by certain unit of say rupees T per unit, right. So, supply curve will shift leftward, say suppose this supply curve will move from S to S1 position. Why supply curve will move leftward? Because look, let us try to understand in this way. When there was no tax, okay, some of the suppliers, say this is the market supply curve, right? That market supply curve is coming through the supply behavior of all the sellers in the market, all the suppliers in the market, all the potential sellers in the market, right? So, suppose the seller who is here, as per his or her cost of production, he will be happy if market price is this much. So, this much price is enough for him to be able to deliver the product in the market. Vis-a-vis the person who is standing here, seller who is, so his minimum acceptable price is this much, right? This should be the price at which he will be able to supply. If price is above that, he will be happy only, right? But at least minimum this much of price he needs, right? So, now the question is, without government imposition of the tax, this price is the minimum price the person who is standing here, the seller who is standing here, he needs to be able to deliver that product in the market. Now, beyond that, and that price was coming from solely on the basis of the cost of production what he or she was facing, right. Now, he knows that over and above that cost of production, he has to pay this much of tax per unit to the government. So, definitely his cost of production has increased, right, per unit that much amount, right. So, as a result, effective price now he needs this much to be able to deliver that product. So, definitely we are getting a sense that the supply curve will move from S to S prime S1, and that movement is basically vertical distance between this S and S1. Vertical distance between S and S1, perhaps this is basically rupees T. That is the tax amount. Let me repeat, if government impose the tax on the sellers, okay, sellers effective cost of production will increase. By effective cost of production, what we are referring, without tax some cost of production was there which sellers were incurring earlier. Now, they have to face the cost of production exactly this much will increase, tax amount will increase. Suppose earlier cost of production without tax per unit cost of production was say 10 rupee. Now, suppose 2 rupee per unit is the tax by the government. So, the person who were facing earlier 10 rupee cost of production, effectively he or she will face now cost of production per unit 10 plus 2 rupee, because 10 rupee in any case he has to face the cost of production to hire that factors of production, and beyond that 2 rupee he has to give to the government if he wants to supply that product in the market, and that 2 rupee per unit, right. So, now effective cost will be 12 rupee. So, earlier if with the profit margin, if he was happy to get the 11 rupee as the price to be able to deliver the product in the market, okay, because 10 rupee is the cost of production and 1 rupee is the profit margin, okay. Now, he has to get the 13 rupee, right, if he wants to keep still 1 rupee profit margin, because that now effective cost is basically 10 plus 2 12 rupee, and he wants to keep 1 rupee per unit as the profit margin. So, it will be 13 rupee. So, as a result effectively, so we claim that if the tax is imposed on the sellers, supply curve will move upward or move leftward. Sometimes we tell upward because supply curve is going this side, sometimes we tell leftward also, it is moving that way, right. So, leftward or upward, right. But why it will shift leftward or upward? This is the mechanism, because effective cost of production is going to increase to the sellers. Exactly the same way, if government impose tax on the buyers, demand curve will shift leftward. Okay. So, let us stop today here, and we will discuss in our next lecture when government is going to impose some tax, quantity tax only, tax on the buyers, how demand curve will shift and how we can understand that shifting. Okay. And then we will discuss that once we know that how supply curve will shift or demand curve will shift, V sub is the other. See, look at here, in this particular case, when supply curve is shifting leftward from S to S prime or S to S1, demand curve is not shifting at all, because producers or customers are not taxed at all. Tax is imposed only on the sellers. That is why supply curves are moving. So, under the ceteris paribus condition, demand curve will not shift. So, without shifting the demand curve, if without any change in the demand curve, if supply curve moves from one place to the another, what kind of equilibrium or what kind of implication will be there on the equilibrium price quantity combination, that we all know. So, that we will discuss in our next set of lectures. First we will discuss when demand curve will shift, and then we will discuss what kind of equilibrium or implication on the equilibrium will be there. Okay. Let us stop here today.